was browsing Reddit and this new CTF for beginners popped up. Obviously I had to check it out and directly head to my favorite category, the binary exploitation stuff. And of course there's a server you can connect to as a regular user, and when you exploit a challenge you will elevate privileges to another user to gain access to the secret flag. But the biggest challenge of all, and I couldn't find rules that would forbid this, would be to gain root. So let's do that. Remember my dirty cow explanation video? Let's use the proof of concept exploit that we had there and test it if it works on the server. So we can simply copy the code to a file in TMP and compile it. To test if we can overwrite files that don't belong to us without overwriting critical root owned files, we log in as another challenge user on the system and create a file with some content. And then we go back to the first user, execute dirty cow on that file and attempt to write some other characters to it. And when we check, we can see that it works. At this point I wrote the author a message on Reddit to inform him that the server is vulnerable and he should quickly update. But now we need a plan what root file we could overwrite to become root ourselves. Our restriction is that we have to overwrite something in a file, we can't append or prepend anything. The first obvious idea would be a setuid binary, but the issue is that in order to write a backdoor shell to the binary, we would have to parse the L file format and figure out where the entry point is. An easier strategy is to overwrite data in a text file, and I choose etc passwd. You can see here the user ID of the users, and if we would change the UID of the pwn1 user to 0, we would log in as root. So the dirty cow proof of concept writes to the beginning of the file, so first we have to figure out the offset inside of etc passwd. We can use hexdump for that and count a little bit. Pwn1 user is at offset hex 4c0 plus a little bit. I use Python as a calculator and modify the exploit code to write to a fixed offset. I think that would be a good plan. And you have to be very careful with choosing these offsets and choosing what to write, because you can screw up the whole system if you don't. So I copy etc passwd to try what I want to do before doing it to the real file. And of course my first attempt would have wrecked the system. So adjusting the offset a bit and also appending a new line at the end is finally successful, and I write to the real etc passwd. Now when we switch to pwn1 or SSH login to pwn1, we get a root shell. Then we can read out all the flags. And once we are done, we revert back etc passwd to the original state. Some important notes. Be very careful what you overwrite with an exploit like this. Just one byte miscalculated and you might destabilize, crash, DOS the system, or simply lock yourself out. Also, if you find a server vulnerable, think about the impact or context you are in. This small private CTF server project that is intended to be hammered is different from a web server you exploited from some random company. So don't go around and try this if you have no permissions or you could cause a lot of damage. Make an ethical decision. Be aware of the risk you are taking. And thanks Maru for being cool about this and allowing me to make a video about it. Good luck with your platform.